for today, dedicated to urgent measures in economy that the government should actually take. Today, we spoke of strategic and sectoral solutions and the general perspective investments. Now, what do we have to do now, guys? What should be the priority for the state policy? Respectively, we'll try to take the government's perspective, the standpoint of business associations, and the business standpoint. Right. So, whom do we have today in the panel? Igor Tynnyi, the co-founder of energy holder Hydroenergoinvest Aquanova. Ruslan Shostak, founder and co-owner of VARUS national retail chains and logistic projects and many other businesses, of course. Andrii Hunder, so president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine. Greetings. Oleksii Sobolev, Deputy Minister of Economy. He's responsible for digital transformation. We'll have Oleksii. He's, by the way, responsible for Ukraine facility plan and many other projects related to business climate and urgent solutions that we have to get in economy. Oleksii Sobolev. And of course, Serhiy Haydaychuk, founder of CEO Club of Ukraine and president, not only. The CEO Club, it's one of the prominent Ukrainian associations. On the basis of it, with the experience of it, we've established so many other communities. And also Serhiy is one of the founders of the Coalition of Ukrainian Business Communities to Modernize Ukraine. Greetings. So, dear friends, Oleksii, I'm so sorry. This is not because we have to stick to the logic, like first government, then we have business. No. It's more because now in your role, you do see a lot of achievements that are in business and in analytical centers and in government. So, out of what is planned in Ukraine facility, something out of that, which are the measures which are urgent? Okay, so do we have to do in 2024 for the economy to survive and maybe come to growth eventually? Thank you so much. You said that, well, not because I represent government, but still I'll start. I have a couple of roles in the Ministry of Economy, and one of these roles we coordinate. For Yulia Sveredenko, we coordinate the Ukraine facility plan. So the Ukraine EU program for 50 billion for 4 years. Some part of it, 39 billion, will go directly to the budget for macrofinancial support. But I'm responsible at my portfolio for SMEs. And the business climate is something that the department, the Ministry of Economy, together with me, are working on. So we do see the ideas that other ministries are giving us, like what we need to develop business in the following years, what we are offering as well. The most important thing, I guess, Andrii knows better, like what business is complaining about, access to capital. And in the next budget, we, as Ministry of Economy, we managed to bite out a big share of support, and grant programs are there, various grant programs, 579 program. This should be done, you know? So secondly, the second strategic task, we need to help business to engage foreign capital from outside, because so much of capital that we need for recovery, there's no such capital in the country. We have to improve the business climate. Urgent measures, the establishment of a law enforcement agency after analytical inspections, which will handle any problems with business, for business to come to that agency. We need to change legislation a little bit, but there is a political will already for all the stakeholders, from all of the stakeholders. So we're moving to that, and we'll have it in 2024. Eventually, I believe in that. So The next urgent thing that we have on the agenda, harmonizing with EU to ensure that our businesses, for them to make it easier to sell, especially the added value products, the industrial visa-free or ACA agreement to be signed. A lot should be done for it, bureaucratic procedures, but we will reach it in 2024, and we'll be able to increase the investment attractiveness of business. And business will export more to EU and engage more investment. Harmonizing meaning regulatory legislation, yeah. For them to allow us to export to EU in those sectors which are not covered. All right. Just to finish, the huge part of what we can provide, a big share of GDP, the state companies, and it's about state companies, and this state sector should be lowered, its share. Privatize the state assets which are non-strategic, give it to business. We know that per each hryvnia of privatization, business invests 4. Instead, we just give extra space for business to invest. And activating privatization, this will be in the plans, and it is in the plans for 2024. Just to finish, deregulation. Our key idea that during the war we would simplify everything. Now we have the moratorium for business inspections. For you to understand the scale, in 2021 we had 300,000 inspections. Last year, 25,000. Can someone say that it's substantially aggravated? We have complaints, yeah, we receive it. So in some locations where businesses are abusing their, let's say, powers, 300,000, 25,000, you can compare. So we need to integrate this mode and to adopt the laws to say that definitely we need to have this declarative principle of inspections, at least for the war, to keep it. And that's what we're doing. These inspections has to be transferred to something like risk-oriented approach. Those businesses who have the abuse, okay, those should be checked by the bodies, responsible bodies, not by everyone. And this what we will do in 2024. EU tells us, guys, we need to have this market control back, because this is a requirement for us to know that your product is safe. IMF is insisting as well. Additional inspections, that's what they mean. We speak of market control, but risk-oriented approach to check only those who behave badly, who have problems. If you don't have problems, if you ensure your civil responsibility, like for 7 years to be exempt of inspections, and we have to cancel all the licenses and permits, which we can, and we have this scaled up deregulation. And we always ask business associations, tell us what to cancel. Give me the law, give me the clause, tell me the decree. What kind of is a lot of political will there is to cancel. So that's where we work with. And next year we live in Haydaychuk. Okay, Oleksii. We really wanted to have this quite harsh panel and straightforward, but Andy, okay, I would like to ask you, because you always say that American big companies continue investing despite what's happening, recovering destroyed industrial capacity. But the question is, we need much more of direct foreign investments. Not these hundreds of millions that we have. Like, we need billions, up to dozens of billions of investments per year. What do we have to do without expecting 2026, without expecting the victory in 2024, to ensure that investment is growing? Thank you, Andrii. First of all, I'd like to ask the audience for the panel. For the gender equality, unfortunately, we have only men today. When I saw the list of panelists and we asked the organizer saying, please give us at least one woman, because we have, this is one of the areas that we develop the women's leadership and empowerment. We have some companies like Boeing, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Visa, MasterCard, like many companies where we have women leaders as leaders. I would really like you for the next year. Organizers, please, let's negotiate. Okay, this was my flaw as well. Mine and organizers. Unfortunately, it happened so that those women whom we invited, they refused. So that's why we have gender disbalance. Yeah, so... but I just have to tell you, we did not refuse any man to take part in the panel based on gender. Yeah. basis. Yeah, just to stick to balance still. We do not harass men, we do not discriminate men. But okay. I really think that these companies that continue working, 84% of companies which are our members, they still are fully functional during the full-scale invasion. And right now, we actively communicate with the Chamber of Commerce, right opposite the White House, the biggest association in the world. And, we listen to what they say. And definitely the message, bring the message to invest more during the war. It's hard, but what actually convinces them, the ambassadors that today are working during the war, they truly like the Horizon Capital. $300 million during the full-scale invasion engaged. I think this is just, compared to what we talk, like 400 billion that we need. Of course, it's not that much, but I think the most important thing now is communication. For these companies to be engaged, we have this balance. With some companies, we communicate asking, how's the business? They say, Andy, I'm ashamed to say this, but business is doing fine during the full-scale invasion. And it's about juggling the messages. Like, on the one hand, yes, full-scale invasion. 32% of companies, at least one person there was who died at the front line. 49% of companies who have destructions, offices, industrial premises, but also companies, on the other hand, showing their resilience and they function. So, underlining this, that Ukrainians show this bravery at the front line and courage, and we need this in the business as well.
They say, take a look at this. How resilient they are and how they show specific results. This is why we have to do that. The message is clear. We say, yeah, we have risks for those who want to invest into Ukraine, but there's a bigger risk not to invest. So the companies that will enter Ukraine, they will be the first. And they will base their business model upon that. After the full-scale invasion, it gets harder while the war is ongoing. But using these ambassadors, I mean, there are great Ukrainian companies and they should share their success stories, not just complaining about the government, but sharing their stories. I think we need more communication like that. So when we consolidate and we show the example, that will get the message across to the company that work here. Thanks, Andy. It's a very great message for Ukrainian businesses because, as we know, they mirror Ukrainian businesses on the West, and which gives the possibility to coordinate and invest into businesses both in the West and in Ukraine. I think this is a good example. And one of such example is a company that not just continues to invest, but enters projects that are not really easy, where they don't just work with assets that were seized and working in social businesses, but they also develop basic businesses to be able to implement social projects. Ruslan, the question is for you. Because everything that's successful is addressed to you. So what should the government prioritize? What should we focus on? Well, first, I think that businesses, it's up to them to develop. They can't just wait for the government to provide assistance, or can't just rely on international partners. Because we've survived these hard years, first COVID and then the war, we had 2014, these were breakpoints when our businesses suffered a lot. And those who survived has built huge businesses and strong businesses. And this is the power that we need to use to keep growing. Because the government doesn't owe you anything. The government needs to support itself. The public sector needs to support itself. We need to keep building our businesses. I am the supporter of 1 billion. I haven't seen any strategy out there that would develop this system to build 1 trillion. It's a huge amount of money, but if you break it down for each industry, we can see that lots of industries can grow tenfold. And it's very important to do it right now, despite of the war. Despite the fact that the war is reality. It's a new reality we live in. And in this reality, we need to keep building our businesses. How it's going to look like after the war, we don't know. We don't know how the world is going to look like. It's going to be a brave new world. And we need to keep building our businesses. And every new year, it's really a new year. It's different. It feels different every year. So let's be stronger. What government can do for us, they can create a strategy for us. Because if there's no strategy to develop the country, we don't know where we're going. I don't see any strategy, war-related strategy. I haven't seen any COVID-related strategy. I haven't seen any trillion strategy. I think this is a figure that the state can ensure, but I think the strategy is the priority for the government. And then there are standard procedures like access to resources, access to justice, free economy, and so on. But it's all about the strategy. We don't see any progress here. Sorry to interrupt you. I think there are many people that were engaged in the creation of a national strategy, Kirilo Krivolab. Well, you guys are great for criticizing and participating, but a national economic strategy is approved. But if it doesn't become a real policy that is implemented in decisions by the government, doesn't work. So it's all about implementation. Why is the government addressing businesses so much? Because the government has limitations. Well, the question to the businesses is, how can we design this strategy and implement this strategy together with the businesses and with the government? Unfortunately, we don't communicate the strategy to the businesses. Oftentimes, business doesn't know what kind of strategy we're building and what the government is suggesting. And it's a problem. If we take Vinnytsia Bythim factory, where we would like to build a huge hub, but we have big problems with legal framework and management. We were able to launch the factory in 9 months, but we had great possibilities when there was an earthquake in Turkey and we could export chemicals. And we couldn't make an agreement with the government to launch this enterprise. Every entrepreneur has cases when the government interfering with them, and we know it happens pretty often. Okay, then the first question is strategy, its availability, communication, inclusiveness for businesses, and working with business climate. Business need to get support, not interference from the state. Do I understand you correctly? I think Oleksii will have a lot to answer for that question, but let's just, keep collecting answers from other colleagues. Serhiy, I would like to ask you, CEO Club consolidates progressive medium businesses that became large businesses and they want more development. The question is, what prevents us from scaling up? And why businesses are thinking about developing project outside Ukraine. I mean, Ukrainian project outside Ukraine. And as Andy said, that if we invest into our country, that will be a great case for foreign investors. What do we need to do to invest into Ukraine? Hello, everyone. I don't want to speak formalities. I really liked the example with the panel about industrial policies, and it's very pragmatic and very clear vision of what to do. Take a look at this. The country has metastasis, is stricken by cancer. Lots of people are dying and people stealing from the state budget. It's a cancer. We have a living organism that's fighting progressive, talented people. But we have cancer. If we're talking about quick economic decisions after 2 years after the war started, something wrong. I don't believe in quick economic decisions and quick reforms. There are 3 fundamental things that are wrong, and nothing's going to change if we tackle these problems. First is the state. It's like an old Soviet tractor. It doesn't matter what you do with it, just it leaves everything, it destroys everything, it leaves everything in ruins when you drive it. Now, our country was changed with Stalinism. No matter how many reformers work, but this Stalin machine keeps going. Number 2 is economic policy. We are reforming things back and forth. But take a look at the country. God gave us talents. Ukrainians are the most talented nation around the world. We are flourishing around the world. Ukrainian volunteering is not just a simple movement. Just take a look at them. They're very creative, and they show how talented we are. If we give our country freedom, because now we are in shackles, it will flourish as the most talented country in the world. Take a look at our capabilities. We are well known, we are visible, and we used to have a good brand. Now it's being destroyed. Talk to European politicians, Western politicians. They talk about corruption. Tens of thousand people that have died. It's been being ruined by corruption. But still we have a brand to save. Lots of countries that are ready to be our partners. We're ready to invest in our technologies and support. Ukraine is consolidated within and outside. The war is very strong technological driver. We have talented people, and we are destroying this. So the economic policy was discussed during the industrial panel, and there's nothing new. It's all there. Number 3 is political will. It's all impossible without the political will. Of course, you can make small decisions, small reforms. But after 2 years of war, the country can't be in a state like that. And I don't agree with the previous speaker. He said businesses are on their own and the government is on its own. This attitude brought us to the war. When we say politics is a dirty thing, let politicians deal with that. But this is a myth. Politics is shared rules of the game. And this is why, guys, we need to take the country in our hands. We need to create a strategy. We need to say that politics is each person's matter, each citizen's matter. So you don't have to become politicians, but you need to have vision. You need to invest in that vision. We are making posts on Facebook, and then we just make meetings, organize meetings with the president's office, and the corruption is still there. So without resolving of these fundamental tasks, it's not going to happen. And the society is more progressive than the government. We need to have the right economic policy. And this economic policy should ensure that we develop our companies. We need to scale it up all around the world. And we're just fighting to get a small loan, a permit, and another thing, at least one economic solution that will help businesses. Just eliminate these law enforcement inspection. Businesses support the army, support the economy. We raise a lot of money for the army. And number three, business supports the employees. And lots of people died, lots of employees died. And at the same time, we have to fight, struggle with law enforcement and inspections. During the first days of the war, when we raised enough money, organized logistics, I called some clerks and I said, let us out through the border. And they said, we will be put in prison. We can't. That was the time when tanks were around, and these people are back and they're destroying businesses. I'm done. Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, Serhiy.
At another panel about business climate, it was offered to call the syndrome of Pivovarsky. The fears of officials, the fears for the future, yeah. Thank you so much, Ihar. Now I want to ask you. You invest in different sectors, and with the Ministry of Economy, we have this, not the dispute, but a search for a better solution. What is better for the state? To define priorities, prioritize sectors which to be supported, or to create the best business climate for any entrepreneurship? So we reached some compromise, but what do you think? In 2024, how shall we shape this idea for the growth? Do we need to give preferences to some sectors? Do we need to develop business climate? Well, I'll start not with this, but I was listening carefully and to all the panels, and I'm splitting in two. Every time when you go to these roundtables and forums, you can see very enlightened faces of your allies, let's say, yeah? And to my kids, I always tell that I distinguish people based on some criteria. My own criteria is let's say the majority of those people we have here who want to add or multiply, and we don't have people who want to subtract or divide. And I fully support the previous speaker that actually we are the country which is infected by police in its worst format. Okay, we have saprophytes. If we all have microbes in the body, we all have herpes in our blood. If we have a lot of it, we have these pimples in our lips. The same is with the scalp. We have dandruff. It becomes a disease. People always protect their lifestyles. Why in Russia we have this situation? Because they never were free. Our country has always been different since the very beginning. Our people were free from every time. They were never like they never allowed to be slaves. We're different, you know. Our country is infected with socialism, infected with police and law enforcement, and a huge share of state. We just have to diminish this, and we will live better. I think that if 2 or 3 policemen right now, for them, because, yeah, they gave the oath, if we send them to the front line, we'll have GDP growing up to 2% at least. Honestly, I think that if, maybe, you know, suddenly, if something happens and the number of officials in the ministries will cut twice, I think nobody of you will notice at all. No, you won't notice this. And I had this statement seen that we established a fund of the funds. All the strategic enterprises will be in one holding. Like, okay. Show me, in 30 years, if you can show me at least one effective state enterprise being effective for longer than 3 years. None of that exists, okay? We don't have these. Private sector business has a perspective, but doesn't have... There are no state enterprises with perspectives, all right? If we want to change the model, I agree. The old model is dysfunctional. That model was built on fear, on intimidation, and it's everywhere. Okay, just a couple of examples, like what should we change? We had this talk that urgent methods, and I start thinking, like, what is urgent? Been discussed for 20 years or not done, but some shit that happening now. What is more urgent? Okay, the basic stuff. Okay. A couple of months ago, during the privatization, I bought an object at Prozoro. 37 companies were there bidding. The next step now, I have to register the land plot and then to get permit for reconstruction. Land plot registration, 14 months for it, okay? It will take. So, tell me please, is it so hard to sell enterprises during privatization with the land in a package? That's what I'm saying. It's primitive, it's basic, you can do it if you want. Or other, taxation. I have a couple of cars. These cars are not new ones, not brand new. These are functional, these are okay, you know, 8-10 years or something. So all these garbage collecting cars, almost all of these in Kyiv, these are mine, and many of these are new, less than 3 years. For business, it's okay. They have 250,000 kilometers. We change that, we replace that. So why am I giving this example? What is our taxation policy when it comes to duties and taxes? In this case, we have to oppress premium consumption and no duties for the imported goods to be there. So I saw the news. In Ukraine in 2023, a huge growth of premium cars. BMW, the light motor cars, the majority was bought, okay, so are the lead in the rating, I know. I don't even know the businessmen in my circle and my colleagues who just go and buy a Swiss watch. I'm hiding my own. I bought these when I was younger, but I feel ashamed. For 10 years, I haven't been even wearing these, you know, before the war. What do we need to do? The premium goods, the luxury goods duty, 150%. Okay, Lesya Ukrainka Street, Sokar gas station. Some people come in the evening, some weird people, Lamborghini, a Bentley, the girls are coming out. And I haven't seen those in clubs. They are in leather skirts, Louis Vuitton bags. The girls, I hope the girls, the car in leather, okay. Who is wearing leather? Just tell me, please. The boys were not better, you know, just believe me. Like, so why am I saying this? Importing equipment, it's a problem. We have to reverse that for import of tech equipment for production now, with zero duty to be made. But for luxury cars, 100%. And a new garbage collection car without duty to be imported. It's just an example. Put tax on consumption, something that is not popular. We have very socialistic authorities. One of my key businesses is electric energy. I don't know how much I pay for electric energy at home, because this is like a small amount, you know? 1,000, 1.5 thousand hryvnias per month. This is like a little. But why so? Because electric energy for us, for citizens, we are the only country in Eurasia, apart from North Korea. At home, we pay the price for electric energy twice as low as the business. But who are the consumers of business? We are. I don't want to mention this word right now, but this is just pure shit. So we pay for low price. We have low price for household electric energy due to inflation of consumers' price. In his shop, in my restaurant, the coffee or the shoes made in my factory, it will be more expensive, and you will still pay, you, the final consumers. But we give funds to the richest because we save it in small apartment. We save more in big apartment, but still. This country can be saved, not with the state reload, but we have to shrink the state as concept in all manifestations. If in a country, if the state, the budget will, if we have 6-7% of people working for the budgeted state, this will be a huge economic growth, a sharp one. Just to finish, I'll give you an example what we have to do. I will repeat this all the time. Now we are saved de facto by the US. Not because they are so noble, we are grateful, but still. First of all, because it's in their ideology. It's in their ideology. What share of state sector in the US in GDP? Minuscule, less than 1%. Almost everything is produced by private companies. You know, even the big air carriers, aircraft carriers, the best fighters, the best bombers, nuclear, bombs, like everything. The budget simply requests that and distributes, but there's no state sector. What is the state enterprise in Ukraine? You can tell me everything about effectiveness of the state, but if we still have the 9th year of war, it started in 2014, if we still can't produce a cartridge for a gun, and my employees who are now in the army, they say that their rifles are not shooting. They're like, no armament, no munition. I offer to cancel the idea on big state corporations, monopolies. This idea should just vanish. Less of state, and it's gonna be okay. This should be there already. Thank you. We have a couple of nuances. Before I pass the floor to Serhiy, Oleksii, I just want to add a couple of figures. 4.8 million out of 10 of actually working people, they work in the state or municipal area, half, let's say. State expenses now, 70%, almost 70%, yeah? Banking system, more than half of it is state-owned. I hope it's temporary, but when we speak of cutting everyone and dismissing everyone, in the Ministry of Economy and the departments, Oleksii's departments, they don't have enough of analysts, for example, to generate this Ukraine facility plan. Okay? In the Office of Reform Support, like the Reform Support Team, do you have enough of human capital and resource? Yeah, there's like a substantial deficit of staff and no professionals in the state. When we start cutting, the first one will cut the remnants of the residual professionals. They are non-productive of sectors. I'm the former Shostak University teacher. I just want to tell you, approximately 40% of freshmen, those who really are paid by the budget, they never plan to work. They just want to get this like degree free of charge. We have a huge gap in education at the highest level, yeah? And this is a big tragedy. We have to privatize universities as well. We may cut twice the number because there's nobody to go to the plant and factory. There's a colossal distortion in the non-productive sphere. Those people who just can subtract and divide. If all these talented people will go to the job fair, we'll have enough of them. Okay, I just want to present it properly to Oleksii, to transfer it to Oleksii. So, the educational workers, 600,000. we can have like we can cut it for 200,000. We can have less of state elsewhere, but international partners tell us that the expense. Well, the state is the key taxpayer. You collect the taxes, you fund your army. Any reforms may lead in short-term perspective to some unclear risks. Okay, maybe after the Easter. Oleksii. I'll tell you, I'll respond. So many comments. Well, in general, what I really disagree with is that state and business are different stories. Is that business doesn't have to want something from the state. In cabinet of ministers I've been for 9 months, what I realize, if good business doesn't want to get something from state, bad business wants something from the state. We say corrosion capital. The attention of officials and politicians, deputy ministers, a couple of hours per day. So if someone gives you a bad request, you spend all your time to avoid it, or when you get some good requests for the country and you build something together, you have some hours per day to spend on that. Coming back to economic strategy. Not what went wrong, what can we do better? Business took the commitment in the strategy they were engaged in designing, and then you have to push the state to implement this. How many times the business told the state, why you had to do this? Like, why it isn't there? Like when IMF comes to us and Europeans, the Ministry of Economy, we are so happy to fulfill the requests of the business. We need to have a good partner and economy growth. This is a joint story. So this interaction, I guess, first of all, it's our destiny to build a better country, and we have to get more of that. Secondly, okay, about the shortage and cutting staff. Okay, we lack resources. We will have this lack of resources in the regions, of course. The non-productive, maybe yes, it's for the law enforcement. You can't retrain law enforcement into analysts or people who lead projects for business and change laws. It's a fact. You have to understand where to take them. In this country, it will be hard to take. We'll compete with business as well. What to compete with at the state in public administration? Small wages. I'm so busy right now. I've never been so busy. My team is so busy. With my most complicated projects and time-consuming projects, I've never been busy. I never knew what the state service culture is. I have no weekends. They don't even ask. Yes, they complain, they dismiss, but they don't ask. So, cutting the staff, yes, it's possible, but it's a complicated problem. I think in our case, I think we need to strengthen capacity for the business to implement some good stories. But business needs to cooperate more and demand it from us. We are ready for it. Oleksii. Okay, privatization, the first one. Do we have to go back to corporate management? It already failed in Ukraine de facto. We did not get the effect we hoped for. And the next cycle now, only 5 objects we have. And the rest, the hundreds, are for the state. And secondly, the Ministry of Economy, the progressive one we cooperate with, are you capable of helping together with business to push the state tax service, customs service, the law enforcement? Who are the biggest problem? Without this, there's no business climate. So being responsible for business climate and Ministry of Economy, just being responsible for 10% of what is the problem. That's what I'm leading to. The request of the business, and something that you repeat at all meetings, yes, with us. We can be the agents inside, those who will do it, yes. And other stakeholders may see it differently. But quite often, okay, we have MPs here. Technology is like that. We have to know something what we want to change, write a text. And we don't reach that stage, mostly. I have situations when there is more political will than texts of laws and decrees, which I can push. Everybody wants to simplify something or correct it, like the register of the land plots. I don't have a mechanism. People who are writing this, even with CSOs helping me, again, a deficit is there. So, this is the process. Regarding privatization, I really support the idea to sell as much as we can. Okay. Out of those 3.5 maybe 100 of strategic ones with 20 important, everything else should just be privatized or maybe put in the capital. Yeah, we have why we keep this 100, a lot of technical and so on, but the war shows which companies don't just do business but have important social functions. I disagree with that there are no effective companies. Ukrposhta has become much more effective. It's competitive now. Plus, it's saving people and ensuring access to for 10 million people to have connection with the state. Nobody's doing that in the country. Kabeluch, maybe, and that's all. Okay. It takes a lot of money because the state is giving the task.
So that they can be private, and I don't know. And this is a objective problem. And getting back, so we did some calculations for the next 10 years, and Gures Seridenko talked about this trillion, and we were criticized for that a lot. But what you can see, the small countries, impossible, small government is impossible. Businesses can't buy Patriot anti-air systems. So the government can do that efficiently. It can't be small. You can't have small footprint. I don't want to, people misunderstand that. Yeah, well, when we say government buying Patriots, I mean like Patriot systems. So our strategy is to put pressure on the state, on the government, so that they can implement useful change and have list of strategies, policies, decrees. If there is a political possibility, they need to vote for that. I have a couple of comments. I'd like to say that within the state we have the right people that make right decision, and Oleksii is one of these people. I agree with him with a series of things. One of them is businesses have to be active. They need to put pressure on the government to ensure there's economic policy. Number two, we are a young country. We failed to do a lot of things. We need to learn. We have so many myths that we inherited and we start to operate it. For example, one time I listened to one of the ministers in the parliament when he said that I believe in the invisible hand of the market in Adam Smith and we're going to do that. And I said, did you read Adam Smith? No. Where does it work? It's just a theory that doesn't work in any country. There's Douglas North, the Nobel Prize winner, that wrote about violence and social order. And this is the #1 book in the scholar community. And the studies show that the richest countries, the most dynamic countries in the world are countries with large government, but they're professionals that are working for the society. Not in terms of privatization or the distribution of the budget. These are different things, but these are professionals that work for the society. So it's not about the number of clerks. It's about the DNA of the state. Who are they working for? And it's just ridiculous to talk about that. We need to read a lot, and then we'll have better discussions, and we'll have a possibility to we'll be able to have quality people in the government. Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about a big government, it should be a government with free access. And when Jim Robertson said with inclusive institutions and availability of business communities is one of the signs of such a state. I don't have Ukrainian citizenship. I live in Ukraine. I've been living for 27 years, since 2006. So I've been listening to people, to foreigners, talking about Ukraine and the way it changed in 90s and 2000s. I never had foreigners talk about Ukraine in a positive key. This is a result of what Ukraine did after the full-scale invasion. It's really inspiring, and Ukrainians need to be proud of that. And we need to communicate that message. How do we use that in 2024 for quick solutions? We need to show the facts. Well, when we said Ukraine is a young country, well, Moscow didn't exist when we had our St. Sophia Cathedral. So you need to show the facts. You need to communicate it. You need to talk about the fact that Ukraine survived. The second strongest army in the world became a second strongest army in Ukraine. And we need to talk about that. We need to be proud of that. Ukrainians have a lot to be proud of. And I really encourage everyone to understand is to consolidate. That's what Serhiy is doing, Ruslan is doing when business is showcasing people and what they can do. So Ukrainians need to communicate that. I have a I'm Ukrainian T-shirt. When I travel to different countries, I can see what the attitude is. And when I say I'm from Ukraine, they never say no. And during this brand awareness, this is something you can build upon. You can encourage people. You can communicate it to people. Because what happened, the perception that people had of Ukraine 10 or 15 years back, it's changed. So we can really build upon that. Ruslan, so what about the plans? What about the business plans? What business need to do? They need to grow. I think that's the most important thing. Some of the panelists fail to understand me. When I say grow without counting on the state, it doesn't mean that we don't need change in the government. You need to rely upon your company. You need to take a look at your strategy. You need to understand it. It can be outside of Ukraine, it can be within Ukraine, but it's up to you to promote your company. You have to rely on your capacity. Lots of businesses are talking about problems, lack of money, and they're complaining. Everybody's guilty except this guy. But people are traveling in different countries, they're developing their businesses. And my message was not that you can't count on the government, but you need to count on yourself. That's very important to understand. We know about business people that are expecting for the Great Reconstruction, where's the Marshall Plan. They're expecting Americans to give money, and they're talking about corruption in the government. But who becomes politicians? And people sitting in this room from the government, what kind of salaries they have. And when we brought 2,000 kids from Ukraine, that's what I did personally, people living near the front line. And all ministry employees and all employees from social services, they helped us a lot. They shared everything they could. And we brought thousands and tens of thousands of humanitarian goods. And I never faced a situation where some corruptioner demanded anything. Well, it wasn't that smooth, but we did that. You just rely on yourself. I was ready to do that. I knew I had to help the country. We're like, it's like we feel that the government owns us something. And we just embarked upon that journey. We really decided to fill the gap because the government hasn't been doing enough for the orphans. They're not doing a good job. I mean, they're doing something. They're not starving, but somebody's going to do that. And who's going to do that? Government employees with a salary of 10,000 hryvnias? We are organizing these forums, but what's changed? Nothing has changed. And nothing has changed for the orphans. And we need to transform that. We need to reform different social areas. I can't do it alone, but it should be a social business. And you have to rely upon yourselves. You can't go around looking for external support. I think this is what I talked about. Serhiy, I just wanted to address everyone. We only have 5 minutes until it's done, and I just wanted to give a minute to everyone so that you sum it up. What do the businesses and the government has to do to make sure that the economic growth is not just 3%, but maybe 5 or 10? What should we do together to influence economic growth? Serhiy, let's start with you, and then Igor, you will get a bit more time. Just a small comment. I absolutely agree with the previous speaker. 110%. Well, I will introduce you to each other, Ruslan, Shostak. Yeah. What majority of entrepreneurs did, they did it free of charge. And Ukrainian business people, they're very adaptive, very flexible. They survived lots of revolutions, challenges. And if we want to build a system in the country, a system of leadership, heroism is not enough. We have thousands of smaller businesses, and it's difficult for them to rely upon themselves. We need to create conditions. They can't just do it on their own. If we need to evolve, that's what we need to do. But I absolutely agree with the previous speaker. It's just my 5 cents. The only thing you need to eliminate these inspections and checks from the law enforcement. That will add up a couple of percent of GDP. So I made some calculations in order to, if you eliminate 100 cops, you will ensure doubling of the GDP. Well, I have some examples of what needs to be done. Well, it's not right that not all banks of Ukraine are interested in providing loans to businesses. And we are interested in other things. That's just the distortion is too big. A national bank prevented people from converting assets from hryvnias, and I have my property on the occupied territories, and chances are it will be destroyed because it's not too far from the front line. I think it's not right, it's not just For private people, like your property is destroyed, you can just register, and I mean, the bank wants to just take the property from me, but I can't access it. What I would suggest for the government, if they really want to make it work, they need to work with a project-based principle. You either resolve the problem or not. So in this case, that's essential. I can't build a waste processing factory because there is no general plan for urban plan. So we can do this. I mean, you can do this. You can just approach them and say, I can help you with, designing that plan. And finally, the government has changed, and the public sector has changed, and Louis XIV has said that I'm the government. Well, the democratic world is different because it has institutions. Even if there's this a president, a person like Trump becomes the leader of the country, he doesn't make it really worse because he can't make up utility tariffs. I think we have a different situation. The president can't turn it into positive success. I think that institutions should work, and I will tell you this. Lots of people don't agree with that. They keep asking me who's the best president ever for Ukraine. I have a different perspective. I think that we have the best economic growth because Western countries trusted us. It happened during Yushchenko, who was the weakest president. He didn't affect a lot, and we've grown a lot. If it's a strong person and institutions cease to work and everybody becomes cops. So institutions should work, the central power should be weaker, and they should not interfere with everything. They shouldn't give us advice on how to make money. This was a urgent economics decisions panel, but this is really a panel of institutionalists. Well, I think it's all about the strategy. I never seen a strategy for wartime from our prime minister. We know how many tanks we need. We know how many cars we need. Okay, but tanks is irrelevant. But cars, we can affect that. We can produce cartridges, missiles, clothes. We don't have any plan how to build and develop the system during the wartime. For me, it's all about the strategy, even after the war. I mean, the technological sector, and Andy was the solution. Ukrainians really made the world surprise. I think it's so inspiring, and they continue to do so thanks to the armed forces, thanks to our servicemen and women. And people that are in this room as businesses that continue to work, they give nice cases, and we shouldn't rely on just government, but small, medium, and large businesses, they will really make the change. Thanks. The Nobel Prize this year, Oleksii, that's for you. It's not just for gender balance, but first of all, it's for the influence of human capital for the economy. So, Oleksii, what kind of solution out of those that Ministry of Economy is working on should be urgent and prioritized? I really can't say, but there will be a strategy. The plan would rely upon 50 billion, so it will be implemented. Military strategy, I don't think they will be public. but something tells me that they are there because there's a huge need. We need to survive, and we know what we can do. And speaking about what needs to be done practically, when they talk about simplification and less intervention from the law enforcement and inspections and regulations, and I think there's a lot of political will for that. So you can do that. You need tasks, you need legislation, and Kirilo, you can help with that. We need some requests from businesses, and we will get that increase in GDP. Amen. Serhiy, Haydaychuk, Andrii, Hunder, Oleksii, Sobolev, Ruslan, Shostak, Igor, Tynnyi, thank you very much.